Ultimate Marvel Universe split people in half. It was meant to give new readers a digestible, modern, and grounded interpretation of the Marvel Universe. But man, some of those characters are awesome. I'm Adam Andrews, and today on Top 10 Nerd, it's the top 10 unstoppable Ultimate Marvel superheroes. Kicking off our list at number 10 is Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde, as we know her, is known for her ability to phase herself and others through solid matter. She also has the ability on Earth 1610, but in this universe, she discovered she can also minimize the negative space around her atoms, becoming super dense and granting herself extra dimensional mass, giving her enough strength to smash through concrete and metal and punch Spider-Man through the air, making her as hard as a diamond and able to withstand attacks from the Phoenix, and even make herself weigh 90 tons at peak mass. But that's as well as her phasing ability, which can allow her to walk on air and water. And that's before her exposure to Giant Man serum to fight Galactus that leveled her up even more, allowing her to increase in her size and gain a healing factor. Definitely one of my favorite Ultimate X-Men, and not just because of her romance with Peter Parker, it's because she's unstoppable. And at number 9, Wolverine. Okay, so for the character of Wolverine in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, he doesn't really measure up to his 616 Earth counterpart in a few ways. But despite that, it is hard not to admit that he's still quite the powerful character. His healing factor is a bit different than his Prime version and is called a survival factor. It essentially means he can survive being torn in half, departed from his head, and even blown up by a nuclear bomb. This version can also detect lies and still has his adamantium skeleton. The only issue is that in this universe, the adamantium is not as strong and durable as normal Wolverine. Wolverine was also actually the first real mutant in the world, with the chemical that activated his X gene being taken, synthesized, and causing the emergence of other mutants. Logan himself was trained by Weapon X as an emotionless assassin, but when the Brotherhood hired him to take out Xavier, he proves he is more than just muscle, overcoming his brainwashing and joining the X-Men. Although, it may have just also been because he fell in love with the teenage Jean Grey. He does meet a sticky end at the hands of Magneto, but up until that point, he is pretty nigh unstoppable. Number 8. Thor. Thor in the Ultimate Universe just kicks off to a really great start. Thorleif Goldman is given to us as a man whose sanity is completely in question. The European government has been trying to create their own super soldier program, but instead of creating a serum, they opted to create a harness and a belt that would augment someone's strength and speed and invulnerability, plus eventually a hammer that lets its user manipulate the weather. Thorleif here was chosen as the best subject to test out the new tech, only he started to believe that he was actually the god of thunder, Thor, reborn in a human body. It's such a cool way to see this character interpreted, but it also makes it so much more satisfying when he eventually proves himself to be completely sane. Using the human technology and his thousands of years of experience as Thor, he becomes a celebrity and a hero. Some refer to him as a Boy Scout, always aiming for the betterment of humanity, and refusing to throw in with the industrial complex of Nick Fury's Ultimates. It took the US president doubling the foreign aid budget in order for Thor to finally agree to join the Ultimates, and he did so in spectacular fashion, bringing the team's fight with the Hulk to a decisive end. He then carries on as one of the strongest members of the Ultimates and redeems himself as a true god among men. Number 7. Rick Jones. In the regular 616 universe, Rick Jones is actually around quite a bit for just a regular dude. For example, he was the teenager who was just hanging out at the Gamma Bomb test site, and saving him was the whole reason that Bruce Banner was doused in gamma radiation and became the Hulk in the first place. Rick was also the alter ego of Mar-Vell of the Kree, smacking together his negabands in order to transform into the hero. He also eventually became another gamma mutate named A-Bomb, but in the Ultimate Universe, Rick's story didn't really start until around the time of Ultimatum. He doesn't have much of an explained history. Instead, not too long before Ultimatum happened, he was chosen by the Watcher to become the hero known as Nova and eventually Captain Marvel. With that, he gained some pretty insanely powerful powers, teleporting himself and others across galactic distances and even into other dimensions, self-sustained flight both on the planet and throughout space, projecting powerful blasts of energy, powerful enough to harm Galactus, and a form of cosmic awareness. He also doesn't have to deal with the multiple personality issues of his 616 self, which probably adds to his unstoppable nature nature in the Ultimate Universe. Coming in at number 6 is Iron Man. The Tony Stark of the Ultimate Universe is pretty similar to his main Earth counterpart, only he's quite a bit more fun, less upsetting, and he eventually finds himself infused with a power that allowed him to physically and mentally interact with pretty much any computer ever. And that's a pretty good ability for someone who flies around in a technological suit of armor. The Antonio Stark of Earth 1610, or the Ultimate Universe, has basically become part man and part machine, being able to project his mind into computers and androids, allowing him to be nigh unkillable. Proven when the Master seemingly brought his end, but he became a non-physical entity which could manifest itself via computer systems. When actually physically inhabiting an Iron Man armor, he gains the usual abilities plus force fields and cloaking, but he's also got nanites in his bloodstream that he uses to control his suits, as well as open locks, defuse bombs, and interact with all forms of tech. This Ultimate Universe Iron Man is one of the most powerful versions of the character in the multiverse. Number 5. Reed Richards. Okay, so in the Ultimate Universe, Reed Richards was a brilliant scientist and leader of the Fantastic Four, as he is in the 616 continuity as well. But we do have to acknowledge something. This Reed does not stay a superhero for very long. In fact, he becomes one of the greatest villains in the Marvel multiverse. When Magneto unleashed the ultimatum wave on New York, his son passed away, and Sue Storm rejected his marriage proposal, Reed started to go a little bonkers. He blew up his family home along with his parents and faked his own de-lifing. He then planned attacks on some major buildings and Peter Parker's home. Eventually, becoming one of the most sinister villains in the Ultimate Universe, the heroes found him, beat him up, and Johnny Storm disfigured him. And then they left him floating in the negative zone. Reed then decided that maybe, you know what, this Earth kinda sucks. So he elongated his brain, spent 1,000 years in the distant future creating genetic superhumans, and started calling himself the Maker. Reed returned to Earth and set out on a twisted quest to make the world perfect, quote unquote. He took out all the Asgardians in an attempt to understand Thor's power and used antimatter to attack Washington. The Maker went on to do a lot of incredibly twisted stuff, fighting the heroes of his own Earth, but eventually the heroes of Earth 616 as well, after the destruction of his own universe. Number 4. Captain America. In the Ultimate Universe, things are a bit more grounded, as some would say. This basically means that things are gritty and Captain America is kind of a bit of a jerk. He's a nationalist, he kinda hates on France sometimes, he will bend the rules to get the job done, he's got all the ideological traits you'd expect out of a World War II era white male, and he wasn't even the first successful candidate for the Super Soldier Serum. Here, that honor fell on Nick Fury himself. But speaking of the serum, this version of Captain America, while also being a bit of a jerk, is actually superhuman, as opposed to being just a peak level human being like his 616 counterpart. This power boost, mixed with the fact that he is very willing to cheat and bend the rules to get the job done, means he is a powerful character and should be as feared as he is respected. Maybe he isn't better in terms of morals or being a great guy, but he's what a real Captain America would probably be like in my cynical brain, and in terms of sheer strength and power, he is truly unstoppable and the best leader the Ultimates could really ask for. Number 3. Miles Morales. Miles Morales, like the Maker, is one of a few characters that came out of the Ultimate Universe that were so popular that they managed to stick around even after the destruction of that universe. Miles is the second Spider-Man of the Ultimate Universe, taking up the mantle after the passing of Peter Parker. He has essentially all the same abilities as Spider-Man himself, but then he has some that are wholly his own, and they're actually really kinda cool. His signature difference in terms of powers would have to be his venom. It's like a form of bioelectricity that he can emit from his body and use in some really cool ways, like in punches and beams and blasts, or in his webbing. But Miles is also able to use a spider camouflage to make his whole body invisible. Miles has made his way into the 616 Earth universe and has pretty much been his own hero ever since on the Avengers and other teams, and he hasn't been stopped really at all, aka he's unstoppable. Number 2. The Thing. The longtime childhood friend of Reed Richards, Ben Grimm met up with his old friend when backpacking through the Nevada desert, like you do. This happened to coincide with Reed working on a test of a teleportation project going through the dimensional barrier into the end zone, as it's called, quote unquote. Ben wanted to see what his friend was up to, and Reed got him clearance to observe, but unfortunately, before the test started, Victor Von Doom, or Victor Von Dam as he's called here, adjusted the coordinates on the machine, causing it to malfunction and tear open a dimensional breach, sending all 5 witnesses to different locations. Ben awakened in a small village in Mexico, but also discovered that the end zone energy had increased his body mass, transforming him into a gargantuan thing with flesh made of living rock. Really weird. Now, as a member of the Fantastic Four, he found new purpose until the team broke up following Ultimatum. What sets him drastically apart from his main universe self, though, is that the Thing eventually developed a second power, to transform from his rocky appearance to one composed of purple energy, with the added benefit, on top of all of his other powers, to project energy. He also gained Sue Storm as his wife, so given all that, it's safe to say that Ultimate Ben Grimm is pretty unstoppable. And in at number 1 is Spider-Man. For a lot of people, Brian Michael Bendis' legendary Ultimate Spider-Man run that kicked off the whole Ultimate Universe in the first place is among the best of the best Spider-Man runs ever told. Peter Parker is a modern-day 15-year-old, still trying to balance his life as a teenager and a superhero. What's different from this version when compared to the regular Spider-Man is that Peter Parker's life is much more relatable and digestible for anyone born in the past 25 years. For starters, Peter isn't a photographer when he first starts at the Daily Bugle. Being a tech-savvy teenager, our hero is one of the Daily Bugle's top web designers. J. Jonah Jameson also isn't a bumbling buffoon, he's a battle-tested, competent newspaper editor that's well aware of how to handle his staff. Spider-Man's interactions with other heroes are a bit more grounded in Ultimate Spider-Man as well, as his love life being much more entertaining and realistic. Whether it's Kitty Pryde or Mary Jane Watson, Peter Parker's love life never really has a dull moment. Even Spider-Man's physical appearance makes more sense. Peter Parker has the build of a realistic, nerdy teenager, and the costume's huge bug-eyed lenses make for a perfect representation of a youthful hero. He may be stopped on multiple occasions, but the importance of this version of Spider-Man makes him pretty unstoppable in my heart. And there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I'm Adam Andrews, this is Top 10 Nerd, and I'll catch you all on the flippity flop. Peace out, nerds.